Welcome to another special edition of In-Depth School and Community. As you know, we've been running a weekly series. We've been beset by the COVID-19 crisis, and now we're looking at remote learning. So each day we've tried to focus in on a specific issue that's confronting our schools as we try to grapple with these issues. I'm really pleased today to have very distinguished guests, not necessarily from the Concord School District, but certainly they have some ties. So please welcome our Commissioner of Education, Mr. Frank Edelblut.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And next to him is Representative Dave Luneau, who is from the Hopkinton area and covers the Concord District. Welcome, Dave.
Correct. Delighted to be here. Thanks.
Thank you. Gentlemen, could you just tell us a little bit about what you do? I mean, a lot of folks out there may not know, well, what does a Commissioner of Education do? I mean, I understand a superintendent, but a commissioner, what does he do?
Great. Well, I get to have a lot of fun. I often say that I have the best job in state government. And that's mostly because I get to spend a lot of time with students and see how they're learning, how they're growing, how they're crafting bright futures for themselves. But when I don't get to have fun, I also am back in the office and I get to spend time working on really kind of the oversight of the education system, working on the laws and the rules, in administering a lot of the funding that takes place to support our schools.
So you have statewide responsibilities.
We do have statewide responsibility for K-12 and then some responsibilities in the post-secondary world as well.
And I would imagine you've been getting a lot of phone calls from superintendents around the state.
I have been having wonderful conversations with superintendents, yes.
I see. And then you've also, Commissioner, you can talk to us a little bit about, I think you've done a really nice public service by offering these, what do you call it, remote calls, if you will, where everyone gets a chance to chime in, come to you, and speak about the issues that we're facing.
Yeah, so during this crisis, what we've done is try to really enhance our communication and make it as easy as possible to stay current on the information. One of the keys to that has been the statewide calls that we have done, and so we're doing regular phone calls with all of our school leaders across the state, and just to keep everybody on the same page. And I have to tell you something, I'm really impressed with how our education system has really grabbed hold of this challenge and has really taken it to heart and is just doing a wonderful job with it. We have a couple of other resources, though, that are pretty valuable. One is we set up a help desk, so people can go online and they can log a question, and then we are building a knowledge base of frequently asked questions so that people can go out there and they can look up, what other questions people might have, and they can get some specific answers to that. We've also created pages that support resources for educators that are working on trying to figure out what are we going to do, how are we going to approach the circumstances that we have. We've got resources for parents as well, because actually it turns out they also all of a sudden are changing their paradigm a little bit and trying to figure out what they're going to do. So just all kinds of things to try and keep everybody informed and on the same page.
So your organization is really more about support than it is about accountability.
It really is about supporting the school system as best we can.
Oh, that's great. Wow. Representative Luneau, talk to us about what your role and responsibility is. And I believe you're chair of one committee, that's school funding, and then vice chair of another, which is the House Education Committee. Is that correct?
Right. No, absolutely. And thanks very much, Frank. Yeah, I mean, I would say that serving in the legislature is actually the best job in state government. And,
we can argue about that later.
And the commissioner has done that before as well.
You don't get paid that much, though.
And that may be where the difference is.
Yeah.
But no, what we do in the House is really work with our colleagues, work with our constituents, and really develop policy that really shapes who we are in the Granite State, and whether that's education policy that affects all of our the students that go to public schools and their families and our economy and the communities they serve. But one of that's the prime objective on the House Education Committee, where I'm vice chair. But also starting this year, we stood up a commission called the School Funding Commission, which came out of the budget work that was completed last summer and fall, and it's really charged with developing policy solutions to how New Hampshire should fund its public schools. And we know that public schools and communities are in trouble across the state, and there's significant disparities in terms of their fiscal capacity in terms of funding. But we've really reached, I think, the brink in a lot of communities where there's an erosion of public support for public education. just because of the heavy reliance on property taxes.
Yeah, so I mean, 2 points, and I'll get to the commissioner second on that. And I know he's done a lot of work in a different way to kind of approach that. But back to you for a second. So talk to us about this whole funding issue. Are you suggesting that the state might rethink its formula in terms of how they appropriate funding for public education?
Well, we are rethinking the formula, and that's one of the charges of the commission, and that's something that as we go through this process, and it's going to take the better part of 2020
Sure.
to get through it. We're going to be following what's called the design thinking process, which we spend time to understand the problem that that's at hand, and then consider a number of different solutions for it, iterate on the best one, and then bring that policy forward, or those policies forward, to the legislature for consideration next session.
That's great. Now, Commissioner, I know you have really worked hard to try and create as much opportunity for parents as possible. So, for example, I might be sending my child to his school, but I'm dissatisfied for a whole variety of reasons as to why that may be, right? And so you've created, or at least you've helped to create, an opportunity for me to go somewhere else. And so we're looking at ways in which we can meet parents' needs for their child's education if they're not being met at the local district level. Now, it gets even more complicated because you feel bad for the local district, because now I'm the superintendent of that district, and I say, we're doing the best we can with the resources we have, and our property tax system only gives us so much. And then I think, but your point is, and I understand that and I appreciate that, and we'll try to help you as best we can, but I got parents who are saying, my child's needs aren't being met. So I want to create an opportunity for them to have that opportunity. And so you're creating school choice, if you will, ways in which it makes it easier for them to go in different places. Yes?
Yeah. So really what it is it's an embracing of, I call it sometimes humanity, and recognizing that kids are all different. Like anybody who's ever had children knows that, especially if you've had two kids, you know that all kids are not the same, because each kid has their own personality, their own approach, the way they engage. And so really it is, how can we craft an education system that supports all of our learners and helps them to get to the best possible outcome? And so that's really what we're focused on, is how do we do that? And I know that you're struggling to do that, and when I say struggling, working to do that is a better way of describing that, inside your system. But let's just say, let's create as many options as we can so that students can find a pathway that's going to bring them to success.
Do you find, or do you think that this whole remote learning approach that everyone is now forced to take is going to create new opportunities or new vistas in terms of how we approach education?
It was interesting. As I was walking over, I stopped in the office, and then I was walking over to the studio with the math teacher. I think it's the chair of your math department. And she was telling me about a resource that she found as she begins to roll out some of this remote learning. She goes, I found this great video that explained this math construct. And I said, I can't wait to share this with my kids. She did, and she goes, I shared it, and immediately kids were getting back to her and saying, this was really helpful. It helped me to understand a certain concept that she was trying to explain. So I think if there's a silver lining in all of the work that we're doing, there really is an opportunity for us to kind of push out and see that there's a lot of different ways that kids can engage learning, and a lot of different ways that kids can move forward. And I have to just tell you, and I've expressed this multiple times on multiple media markets, but could not be prouder of our education leaders, really, the school leaders and the educators who are just, I get that for many folks, they've had to move outside of their comfort zone in this circumstance, but they've really done a great job in terms of embracing that and figuring out, how do we keep this moving for students? It was interesting, just literally within the last hour, I was on a phone call with the Secretary of Education for the country, and we were having a conversation, and I think she was impressed with how well New Hampshire school leaders and educators have embraced this mission. She was pointing to other states who have closed down their school systems in these circumstances and basically told kids to go home.
Wow.
Well, that's not good for kids, right? And so, as imperfect as it might be as we begin to roll this whole process out, the fact that we recognize that our kids, we're not going to leave our kids alone. We're going to continue to fight for our kids and move them forward. And that's really what you guys are doing.
No, thank you. Thank you. And I think another anecdote, and I'm sure you can appreciate this too, Dave, parents have jumped into this with both feet, if
Fun
you will.
to watch, isn't it?
Yeah, the parents have really helped out, and they've asked, how can I be a resource? What kinds of things can I do? We've tried, as you have, we've tried to create as many communication vehicles as we can, so parents are aware of the various means by which they can, help their child.
Yeah, how do we support those parents too?
Exactly, exactly. So I think this is it's a new world for us in terms of how we operate, and certainly everyone is trying to get used to it. But I think, as you've already pointed out, all of us are embracing this together. We're all in this together, if you will. So it's not about, well, what are you going to do? It's about, what are we all going to do?
You want to know a good example of that?
Sure, go
what
ahead.
we all are going to do is really around our food programs.
Yeah.
Because I think it's pretty widely known now. So we got an early jump on our waivers, which created a lot of flexibility for us in terms of the distribution of those food programs. Got a couple more waivers I'm working on down at the federal level.
Yeah.
But so here we now have the opportunity to be flexible in how we continue to support students that get breakfast or lunch through their school systems. And I think we served 50,000 meals yesterday, but we served them in a whole bunch of different ways. Like, bus drivers allowed themselves to be repurposed to deliver meals. Some bus drivers are going to their stops and they're dropping food off there. Others are in a different way.
Yes.
I spoke with the president of the Sheriff's Association in New Hampshire. So in all of our county sheriffs, county sheriffs across the state, they are all leaning in and saying, hey, we can help you with those deliveries. We'll work with you.
Sure.
So volunteers stepping up and just helping. So a great example of kind of that New Hampshire spirit of, we're going to be New Hampshire strong. We're going to help one another out.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, our bus drivers have done exactly just that.
That's wonderful.
Let us help out to deliver food. We're delivering food to every single school, every single day, in addition to various locations around the city, because we know there are impoverished areas that are going to need help.
Right.
I think, as you pointed out, we have a lot of kids who have breakfast also along with the lunch. So what we've done is, so if Dave goes to the school to pick up his lunch, he's also going to get lunch and tomorrow morning's breakfast. And that's available at every school, every single day.
Yeah, and a lot of districts have been doing this for several years now through the Gut Lunch program too, which I believe began up in Laconia a number of years ago. And I know we've embraced that in Hopkinton and worked with a lot of community organizations to help provide meals for students throughout the community. But I think something to also keep in mind right now is that while we're in a brave new world, hopefully this is just a temporary type of situation. And we're sort of breaking the 6-foot rule, a little bit at the moment here. But I don't think anybody is hoping that this is going to continue indefinitely. As far as remote learning. I think it's important to also realize, and I think one of the reasons this was able to stand up so quickly is that teachers across the state have been using technology in classrooms for a long time right now too.
Sure.
And as we were talking off camera, Concord was able to get this up and running and begin engaging students in instruction really by day 3 in this process. And I think that's been true in a lot of districts. But something that I think can't go without saying, and this goes back actually to probably my 12 years on the Hopkins School Board. This is probably something I learned in year 1, probably month 1, when I really learned that teaching is a contact sport, and to sort of simplify it, but the quality of instruction from our professional teachers is really something that goes to enabling the use of technology in education. Because without that, I mean, there's certainly a number of resources that are already available, such as Khan Academy, OCW, and stuff like that. But without that level of quality instruction, from our teaching staff, it's really due to those instructional practices that make it all work.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and you're preaching to the choir, certainly, and I think we all agree that the dynamic process of face-to-face education is really, that's as best as it's going to get. We're going to do what we have to do to create opportunities for our kids to learn. We'll do the remote learning. We'll do other ways in which we can communicate and coordinate with our students, but the dynamic between the teacher and the student. And I mean, we always follow the philosophy.
Those relationships, right?
Thank you, you beat me to it. It's
what it
all
is.
about relationships.
Yes.
And if I know who you are, I care about you, and I want you to be successful. If I can have that relationship with the student, I'm 99% of the way there. The rest is gravy, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's really an important dynamic that sometimes gets missed. And the more quality we have, as you've already said, and we do have it, the better off we are in terms of providing good quality education for all our students, not just the select.
You know, it's interesting, when we rolled out kind of our remote instruction,
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, but I have kind of this a function, really.
Yeah.
So it's remote instruction plus remote support results in remote learning for our students.
Yeah.
And so it'd be one thing, it'd be easy to just say like, oh, it's all about the instruction, but you have to have those supports in there as well, which includes those relationships that we have with the children.
Right.
You know, and how you're going to, we talked about the food programs, but our special education students. So it's really instruction plus support results in learning.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, you know, talking to the students, and so we try to create as much opportunity for our teachers to phone, you know, connect with our kids as much as possible. So there is that two-way communication about what things are being done.
Right.
And then, as you mentioned also, you know, the special ed students, that's a little bit different in how you're going to, you know, negotiate that and appropriate the right kind of supports for them, because it's not going to be as simple as just a remote learning.
It's going to look different.
It's going to look different.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's turn our attentions, Representative Luneau, if we could, to the COVID-19 and what you folks at the State House are dealing with in regards to that.
Sure. So, so some people may have heard that last week we held our what ended up being our final House session, and it began at 9 in the morning on a Thursday and ended at 4 o'clock in the morning on a Friday. And over that period of time,
The people's work.
that's right. It is. It's and over that period of time, I think we went through close to 400 bills.
Wow.
And so as that House session wore on,
Yeah.
and people are starting to get a little tired as well. I mean, there's a lot of debating, and there's a lot of sort of pressure and a little bit of anxiety on all that. A lot of news was coming over too. New York City shutting down, Disney shutting down.
Yeah.
Different transportation systems changing schedules, shutting down, and you could feel the anxiety building in Reps Hall as this wore on, and it was a very, very interesting time and place to be, and maybe not something that would ever be repeated again in the New Hampshire legislature.
Yeah,
for a long, long time. We had several members, as the commission knows, several members are also, members of their local school boards and select boards.
Yep.
And it also happened to be town meeting night that night. So so several actually had to leave session, go and lead their town meeting, maybe an hour and a half drive away, and then returned to session 2:30
to finish the evening,
3 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
Still with hours to go.
Yeah.
So from a lot of respects, I think it was really certainly one of the highlights in my 6 years as a legislator, and I'll always fondly look back on it, but hopefully not having to repeat it again.
For sure.
We try not to do all-nighters. Yes. We discourage that for the students.
Right.
So.
Yeah, now, Commissioner, we know the governor has said, okay, we're going to shut down until April 3rd. So that's about 2 weeks from now. And so I think a lot of folks have said, okay, 3-week hiatus, I can do that, I can put things into play. But I think as we're all sort of intimating here in this conversation, this may go a lot longer than April 3rd. We could be looking at this all the way to Memorial Day.
Right.
And so, go ahead.
Yeah, and so because of that, and I've been in communication with the Speaker's office as well, specifically to see what sort of work our School Funding Commission may be able to engage in while we're in the legislative shutdown, but it's going to be very important. I spoke with Senator Khan this morning, who's chair of Senate Education, and there are several things in the works right now in terms of policy changes that that the legislature would really need to consider. Number one, in order for the legislative activity to be able to have some sort of continuity during times like this. but also, and I think this is obviously working closely with K-12, the department, on statutorily things that may need to have some relief in order to for school districts to be able to continue operating. Particularly districts that may have postponed district meetings and business sessions, obviously budgets, teachers' contracts, things like that.
Ooh, that's a good point. We just ran into that very problem with our school board, and as you may know, Concord has a unique system in terms of how the funding goes, and so we don't have to go to the community to get support. School board has the final say on what the budget is. So we had a series of budget meetings all set last week, this week, and next week. Well, guess what? They're all yes, exactly. So we had to go to our CBA union president and say, will you relax the deadlines and allow us to have this conversation, hopefully after April 3rd. But we're fast coming to the realization that may not happen, so we're going to have to do these meetings virtual and then say to the public, I'm sorry, we'll have to figure a way we can allow public to chime in, similar to your phone calls.
Right, so we've put some guidance out for the folks on how to manage some of those things, which I think is important. So, you know what's another aspect? So we have the April 3rd is our reevaluation date, and we'll then take a look at it.
Right.
And I think even on my calls, I've been intimating that it might go longer than that. We don't know for sure. We'll have to wait and see kind of what happens.
Right.
But did you see the guidance I put out yesterday about healthy habits?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that's an important message that we want to put out there as well. And in a certain way, I hope this doesn't come across as scolding, but I mean, our adults need to dial it back a little bit sometime because our kids are paying attention, right? They're watching, and we don't need to instill fear and anxiety in them. We need to begin to reduce some of that stress if we can, and really begin, and as I've kind of shared in that document that I sent out to you, begin to think about self-care and those things that are going to help you, stay calm and stay functioning and healthy, really, and but that's physically healthy, but mental health healthy as well throughout this process.
I think, as you've already pointed out, the communication is huge, and so the more we can communicate to folks about what we're doing, what lays ahead, how we can help you out, what resources are there, how we can make this as productive a situation as possible, as opposed to, oh my God, the sky is falling.
Yes, exactly.
We want to get away from that and just say, okay, we got 3 weeks in front of us. Let's channel our energies towards that.
Focus.
If we get a message that says it's another 2 or 3 weeks, fine. Let's figure a way how we're going to do that. So you take it one step at a time and keep bringing the communication, bringing the resources at your doorstep, if you will, so that folks know what to do. And they also know, Commissioner, as you already pointed out, and you do a good job of this, we're here. Call us.
Yes.
We're here. We got a help desk. We got phone lines. We got support folks.
And we want to support you. Right?
Exactly.
We are here to support our communities as best we can.
Now, Commissioner, do you find that, obviously we talked about Hopkinton, and you and I know we have a mutual friend and the superintendent there, and a lot of school systems are doing really, really well with this, and I think have responded extraordinarily quickly.
Incredible. That's the best way of describing it. Like, unbelievable. You guys are killing it. Right?
Thank you. Well, what about some of those districts that may not be so fortunate? What are we going to do for them?
Yeah, so across the board, what I will tell you is districts are moving forward, right?
Right.
Some, this transition has been a little bit easier, some a little bit more difficult, but all of them have the same attitude, and that's really where the starting point is, right? There's not a single district across the state who's not saying, we can get this done. I mean, I can even describe a conversation I had with one superintendent who initially was concerned, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the sky is falling. What are we going to do here?
Right.
These guys are digging in and they're getting it done. They took a breather.
Wow,
they said,
great.
okay, and they organized their team and they're moving forward, right? I mean, and again, I think we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace in this process. Remember, there's a lot of people learning. Students are going to learn, but parents are going to learn, and teachers are going to learn, administrations are going to learn. And so just give ourselves all a little bit of extra space to learn in this process. It's not going to be perfect the first time, and that's okay, but we learn from our mistakes and we go forward. And so really, this is an opportunity for us to model learning for our students and say, like, hey, this is something new. It's challenging us as an education system. We don't necessarily know how this is going to play out, but we're going to learn from it, we're going to adapt, and we're going to continue to go forward.
No, I think it's that bold, almost Shackleton-like, approach. We can do this.
Yes.
And everybody bands together. Everybody does what they're supposed to do. We're going to win, so to speak.
Right.
And I think that's a great attitude to have, and I think it keeps people's eyes focused on what's in front of them. And speaking of focus on what's in front of us, so Representative Luneau, can you talk to us about what the governor might be able to do on behalf of the citizens of New Hampshire in terms of, I'm hearing all this largesse coming from the federal government. So I just wondered, is that going to get trickled down to us? Is the governor going to be in a position to do anything? Do you have any ideas?
So the governor's obviously done a lot of things through executive order right now, which is really given the fact that the legislature is on hold.
Sure.
Is really one of our limited ways of doing things at the moment. As far as what the administration down in Washington is going to do, I mean, I think there's some stuff that's starting to come out right now. I have been watching news conferences on this. The governor obviously has taken on a number of recommendations that were brought forward to him by a number of my colleagues. That in terms of availability of employment security benefits,
Great. That's great.
and things like that,
Yeah.
and extending those to self-employed persons as well,
Excellent.
which
Yeah.
is really important in the
Right.
state, given the fact that a lot of people who are in social work and working in our mental health area are self-employed people. So I think, as the governor continues to receive information and recommendations, we'll probably, I mean, I can't speak for obviously that office,
Yeah.
but I think everybody is really teaming together right now to do what's in the best interest of Granite Staters, realizing that we've got so much at stake, not just K-12 education, but our businesses, our economy that everybody has worked on so hard on. For so long, but people's livelihoods. I mean, everything from paying the rent to car payment and everything else, and we need to make sure Granite Staters are taken care of.
No, I appreciate that. Commissioner, you were going to say?
Well, I was just going to jump in relative to federal partners, because our federal partners, I think, when I shared some of that information with you guys on the call, and as well, we're continuing to correspond with them in terms of needing some flexibility. And this is, very granular level information. But for example, if you've got a Title I paid employee and they're being redeployed in different types of work, what is that going to look like?
Sure.
If you have a Title II teacher professional development event scheduled and you have to cancel that, what does that look like for those title grants?
Yeah.
If we're not going to be able to spend all of our funds because of the disruption, we normally have that 15% carryover limitation. Are they going to give us a waiver on that and let us carry over some more funds? So lots of good detailed questions that we're engaging with our federal partners on, and they're very receptive to those conversations. Some of those decisions are premature at this point in time, but we're teeing up the conversations to make sure that we are able to move in a good direction that, again, continues to provide our school leaders a lot of flexibility in terms of the delivery.
That's outstanding. I mean, we're just about out of time, but I want to tell our viewers, I mean, we're in good hands. I mean, people like you, Commissioner of Education, representative for our state, you're one of our state leaders. I think people will feel that you have our back. You're trying to do the best you can to support us. We're all in this together. I mean, I can't thank you both enough. I appreciate you coming out of your very, very busy schedules to come do this show with us. It's really important. I think our folks will really appreciate that. And I can't thank you enough for what you do on behalf of New Hampshire children.
Great. Thank you for
having us.
having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.